Super, super. Ouais. En fait, au début, je parle de ce qu'on a gardé sur KeyStep et après ce qu'on a amélioré. Et dedans, je parlais de Generative, de OLED, de la connectivité. Et je vais dire USB. On a un port USB, on a un power switch, on a de l'USB-C, un power switch et une prise CV en plus. Et au pire, je dirais, Morgan, if we can show the image. Alors, let's go. We live? Cool. Hello everyone. Hello and welcome to this live stream. I'm Sebastian, for those who don't know me, and I'm the product manager on KeyStep Mark II. And yeah, it was released last week. Extremely happy with that release. It's a beautiful instrument. It's a beautiful legacy also. KeyStep is something we are extremely proud of at Arpeggiator. So it's great to finally see some evolution on that range. What we're gonna do tonight, so we're gonna take maybe 1 hour or something like that. I'm gonna talk a bit about, give you a brief overview of what it is, talk about the differences with the first KeyStep maybe, and I prepared a demo set with a computer so that we can look at some of the functionalities and how they kind of work together. Cool. So let's start with the basics. Let's start with what is this thing. So KeyStep is a compact controller and sequencer. It's meant. I guess it's meant for hybrid setups. It's meant for people who are going to work with the computer, with hardware gear. Maybe modular, maybe external modules. People who want to add some keys to their setup. It features 32 keys of our what we call our slim keys keybed with velocity and aftertouch, and it's really the sequencer and arpeggiator. We already have sequencer and arpeggiator on KeyStep, but we really put the emphasis on generative functionalities and just creating new ideas out of nowhere. So I mentioned KeyStep 1. I think it's a good opportunity to talk about the difference between the original KeyStep. I'm talking KeyStep Mark I. Just as a recap, we released KeyStep Mark I, then KeyStep Pro, and finally KeyStep 37 over the years. But now I'm talking about the changes compared to KeyStep Mark I. So yeah, like I said at the beginning, it's you're building on a legend when you're doing the second version of KeyStep, because this instrument is successful, but also that we've seen it everywhere. It's become very important for people in their setup because, well, it finds uses in many situations. You go to super booth, to go to half of the booth, you can see a KeyStep even today, and it's also true in people's houses. Many of the people who own a Eurorack setup eventually bought a KeyStep. So, you're trying to do a new version of this one. You don't want to mess up the things that, made people appreciate the first instrument. So maybe I'm going to start with what we wanted to keep. What we felt was essential to KeyStep and we didn't want to touch. The first thing is the form factor. The KeyStep is a very shallow product, which means that it's easy to put something in front of it. And like I said at the beginning, the real purpose of KeyStep, I find, is to add keys to something. And so anytime you have too many controls or too much depth on your controller, you're making it harder to reach for the device you're actually controlling with KeyStep. So by having something compact, you make sure that it's easy for people to manipulate the device they want to control. The size is almost exactly the same as the original KeyStep. We also kept the keybed because it has velocity aftertouch and it's quite compact. We actually improved the aftertouch, the feel of the aftertouch. It's a lot more responsive than the previous KeyStep. Another thing that we kept is the connectivity. Part of the purpose of KeyStep is to be connected to many things. And that means USB, that means MIDI, that means CVN gate. So we kept all of that because all of these things made sense. We kept the price. We wanted to keep it as something that was somewhat affordable, and we succeeded to do so. And finally, maybe the hardest or the most challenging when you design an instrument is to keep the simplicity. And that means like button count, that means the ease of use, that means the depth of menus, things like that. We wanted to improve on the functionalities and at the same time keep that immediacy and keep that fun aspect of the original KeyStep. I would say that for people who want to get into deep, detailed sequencing, we have KeyStep Pro. And KeyStep Pro is a very powerful multi-track sequencer, among other things. But this was not really the purpose of this instrument. The focus was more on keeping it a simple, focused instrument. Now maybe we can talk about what we improved compared to the original KeyStep. So the first thing is KeyStep already had a sequencer and an arpeggiator, but we really pushed the generative side of things. We put in some functionalities that lets you create new ideas. For instance, this mutate button that generates new mutations of your sequence, or arpeggiator, the spice functionalities. So these kind of things. It's really something we wanted to improve. Another thing is adding a display. Adding a display it's a lot more convenient just to use. You can see your tempo, you can see which sequence is loaded. As I said, the sequencer, press record and play. We have a count-in with the visual metronome straight away. Having a metronome for real-time recording is extremely handy. So all of that was possible through this small but functional display. We improved the connectivity, and maybe Morgan, I don't know if you showed the image already, but we had micro USB and no power switch, and now we have USB-C and an actual power switch. And we also improved the CV connectivity. KeyStep used to have pitch, gate, and velocity, and now we have pitch, gate, and mod 1, mod 2. And both of these can be configured to be velocity, aftertouch, mod wheel, a pulse for each note that you press. So for instance, if you play multiple notes, the gate will stay up, but you can have a different impulse on each note, useful sometimes, and a random value for each note that you press, also something convenient just to generate randomness in your patch. Am I forgetting something? I feel like I'm missing one. Did I say mod wheel? Anyway, it doesn't matter. So we improved that. We also improved on the sequencer. And I kind of want to say, like I said, KeyStep Pro is here as a complex, deep, multi-track sequencer. Here we wanted to add things, but mostly we added convenience. Having more sequences instead of just 8, having 64. Being able to record unquantized. So for people who want to have the actual feel of the recording, they can record unquantized. You can quantize afterwards. Mod wheel recording, pitch bend and mod wheel recording, also an extremely requested feature. Just adding some quick ways to add more performance, more expressivity to your recording. Undo. I'm impressed how useful it is. I'm not a great keyboardist, so the ability to just cancel a bad recording or just the last step of a recording is extremely useful for me. And also, like I said, having a screen, so step-by-step editing. Morgan, I don't know if we can see that on the screen right now, but I just select the sequencer, activate it, step recording, and then I can just scroll through the different steps. I can just add some notes, or go navigate, select a note, change it, or remove it. I would say it's not the the philosophy of KeyStep to go that deep into editing, but it's super convenient that it's here. And finally, the other thing that we improved compared to KeyStep Mark 1, also on the Arpeggiator. We used to have a few, I would say, basic ARP modes, and now we pushed it a lot deeper with the generative functions with all the ARP patterns that are arpeggios because you press keys and they generate melodies based on these keys, but with a lot of generative in it. I'm gonna stop talking and we're gonna start listening to a few things. I figured rather than to show each features individually, what I'm gonna do is kind of show you how the features work together, how they interact, the synergies that we can find between functionalities. So let's have a look. I'm gonna start by showing, as I would say, as a simple controller. So I have this, I'm playing with my computer. I have a pigments patch playing right now with some movement on the mod wheel and some velocity response. Anyway, we're going to look at without using the sequencer and Arpeggiator first. So let's start. We can use the Chord mode. So Chord, if I just set it up, how do we call the chord? I just hold the Chord button, and it plays back the notes that I entered. You can enter up to 8 notes in the Chord. So right now, if I just press different keys, it's going to transpose, just, how do you say, chromatically, diatonically? I don't know, basically it's just transposes the full chord. But it's very easy to get notes out of scale when you do that. So this is one of the first synergies, is just using the scale in conjunction with the chord. So if I set, like I said, a minor scale and set it to A, now all the notes I'm going to play are going to stay in the scale of A minor. So all the notes in my chord as well. The chord button shows what functions are active. Blue means the scale is active. If the scale is off, it's peach, and it's purple when both are active. All right, so already scaling chord. Now let's dig a bit more into the chord mode. So that's one of the functions that we actually that I actually took from a KeyLab Mark III that we released a while ago. But as I long press on the chord button, I get a few things that I can choose. I can choose a preset, so there's the user chord, but there's also a set of chords that are pre-created. Then we can use spread. So let's have a listen to spread. What spread does is just the size of the chord will depend on something. So in this case, velocity. So the harder I press, the more notes are going to be in my chord. The next one is strum. And strum basically will delay some of the notes in my chord. So let's add a little bit more, let's say 25 milliseconds. So you see already how these two functions kind of work together. That big chord, like pressing the velocity, just creates that massive chord, but then it's also strummed to give more space to each of the notes. Strum can be synchronized or not, and you can choose, as a quantize or not. Voicing, also a great feature. Let me skip spread. So voicing, also from KeyLab Mark III, tries to emulate how an actual keyboardist would play some chords. And you don't just play boom, boom, moving the whole note, but you actually find the nearest notes around you to do inversions of your chords. So let's have a listen. So here's how it plays without voicing, and then with voicing. It's going to play notes that are closer to the one I just played. So the chord feels more compact, but more like how a pianist would play. Right. So let me bring back this spread. All right. Now that we have chord and scales playing together, let's explore how these things work with an Arpeggiator, for instance. So if I just set the ARP mode, Let me set a basic up mode 1 octave. So what you're hearing right now, I'm playing just one note, but I have this full chord with the number of notes depending on the velocities that I press. And you see already how these things kind of talk with each other. The chord feeding the arpeggiator and the velocity feeding the amount of notes in the chord, and all of these things working together. If I turn off the chord mode, I can just, we're back with a simple arpeggiator. Huh? If I just place one note, we have one note. Let me bring back my chord. Another thing that I love is the arpeggio reset. So like I showed you, long press on chord enters the chord menu. If I long press on ARP, I get access to two settings. The first one is the length of the ARP, and the second one is retrigger. And both work together. Basically what they do is after a number of steps, the ARP phrase resets to the beginning. So let's set a length of 16, for instance. And now, you see the arpeggio had started to loop back, but it resets after 16 steps. And what I love with this is that it's a lot easier to use it in a production, because at least the arpeggio is aligned with the musical structure, with the rhythm of your track. You know, if you're doing 4/4 music, set it to 16 steps or 32 steps, and then whatever you play will feel more like a phrase than like an arpeggio. Right. This is one of the features, one of the synergies that I really like with KeyStep. Chord with the ARP and with the ARP that gets reset, because just I play one note and it's really about how hard I play it, and with the spread, just I get more notes, so I get a longer phrase, but then everything just gets reset every time after 16 steps. Super cool. All right, let's clear some of that. Let me go back to something simpler. We're even gonna clear the scale. All right. So now we're back to something very blank. We're gonna look at the sequencer and the arpeggiator and how the two work together. All right. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna start by building a sequence. I'm going to do a simple sequence. We're going to go deeper into the functions of the sequencer afterwards, but let's start with something simple. So let's see. Something like that. All right, so sequencer, record. Let me just... Long press on sequencer also reveals the sequencer menu with a bunch of features. For instance, here, I already have a sequence that is entered, but I want to start from something clean. So long press on sequencer, and I can do init the pattern. I can also shift plus this key, which says clear, and it will just clear the notes in the sequence. Anyway, let's record something. So now that I have a blank sequence, the recording will last for as many notes as I enter. So hold to add a silence. All right, and now we have a simple phrase that I work with the sequencer. All right, I'm going to show you how this can be used as a basis for the arpeggiator. So if I select the arpeggiator and I play the same note, Now we are in an up mode. We can see here, it's just playing the notes up. Some of the other modes are like random. And then we have all the generative functions that I'm going to show you later. Let's look at the last one, labeled 16, and you can see the tiny icon of it's a small person. It's the user mode. And the way these work, it's a bit like, it takes a bit of getting used to, but you write a sequence, and the notes that you write in your sequence, I would say from lowest to highest, become the notes that will get played by your arpeggio when I play other notes. So, for instance, if I play the same notes that I entered, I get that same pattern. But now I can change the notes. Instead of this, I can play this. And it's, you know, like it sits somewhere in between a sequence and an arpeggiator. It is a sequence because, well, basically what I program with silences, longer notes, velocities, becomes the, I would say, the frame that we're gonna work with. But then I can remap that frame with different notes based on how I play, you know. Just like an arpeggiator waits for you to play some notes to actually do something. And I don't know, it's such an efficient way to write, I don't know, like more complex phrases. You know, I just built this simple 16-step sequence, then just like changing the bass, for instance, or changing the notes that are played, and I immediately get a performance that is more, I don't know, more lively than a simple arpeggio or a simple sequence. So let's say that I had this. I was playing this, I think. All right, and I don't really like the sound of this. So now that with this feature, I can do a. I could do this, for instance. Hold button will hold the arpeggio. And now that I have this, I can transform it back into a sequence. The way I do that is, if you look at the ARP button, below the ARP button, it says to sequencer. And basically what it does is convert the ARP back into a sequence. So I had this sequence with some notes I didn't like. Use the ARP user mode. Change for some notes that I like better. Okay, I like this. Convert back to a sequencer. And now I have this. So again, you know, like rather than to go into detailed editing, step-by-step editing of each note, it's more like, okay, here's something I have. I don't really like it. Let me turn that into an ARP, play different notes, remap my sequence. Okay, I like what I have. Take it back into the sequencer, and use these features together rather than you know, do focused editing on one of them. All right, so now let's talk a little bit about the generative functions that we have on KeyStep Mark II. How do we do that? We can play with this sound, or maybe let's do a bass line. Let's do a bass line. So we're going to start with the arpeggiator. No, actually, no. You know what? We're going to stay with the previous sound so I can play polyphony. So we're going to start with the arpeggiator. So back to the first mode, like I told you. Back to the first mode. So up, down, up and down, random. But in this case, random means just it's a different note every time. Order, which is it plays back in the order that I played, and poly, which is kind of brutal. You can find some use sometimes, but it plays all the notes together. All right, so all of these are more like, I would say, rule-based. There's no generative functions except random that is purely random. And now if we look at the icons starting from 7 all the way to 15, these are what we call the ARP patterns. And these are generative functions. So I'm going to take the first one, say short one. And now we have a phrase that's going to play, and it's going to loop. It's going to loop, and if I play different note, it's going to stay. So same as what I was doing with the sequencer into the arpeggiator, I still have some control. You know, I can jam if I like that phrase that KeyStep provided to me. I can still, interact with it. So I'm always playing 4 notes now, but can play more notes. Can change the bass. So that's the first ARP pattern, but this is where the mutate function comes into play. If I press mutate, I'm going to get a different phrase. Let's listen. This is still the same one. It's always based on the notes that I play. It doesn't pick notes from elsewhere. But the way it chooses the notes is random. And same thing, where I can just play a different set of notes, and it continues to keep that phrase that it continues with that phrase that I press until I press mutate again. So that was the first one, labeled 7. These ones, all the way to 15, all have different flavors of generative. Basically, what you can choose is it mostly, is it notes on every steps, or are there some gaps, some silences? If there are some gaps, is it mostly filled with silences, meaning we have mostly short notes, or do we have sometimes short notes, sometimes long notes, or mostly long notes? And then can we have polyphony as well? On each of these, we can continue that process of pressing mutate and getting new ideas. Let's do that. I'm going to just play a set of notes, and we're going to just navigate through the different run, see the kind of sounds that we get. So this is short 2 with a few silences. And all right, short 3. No, long 1. So more long notes start to appear, and there's more silences. And then we get into here with mostly long notes. And then we get into polyphony. So it's not purely random. It's based on a set of rules that we tried and we refined over time. The rhythm kind of takes inspiration from the Euclidean rhythms to place the notes, but it's never purely fixed on that. There's always a bit of randomness. But for instance, on polyphony, it's not like a bunch of melodies generated and stacked up together. It's more like it's going to play melody sometimes and then chords together. So it feels I don't know. It can't generate everything, but what it does, we try to have it that sounds quite nice. So let's listen to a bunch of poly modes. Let's do some mutates. All right, and then let's move to the next poly. And the last one gives you more long notes. All right, so you get the idea. Something super cool using the ARP octaves. So, like I told you, it uses the notes that I play. But if I choose more octaves, it's going to pick notes from the octaves above. Oh, it can go wild, but I don't know. You don't often use chords over 4 octaves. But on something simpler, like let's say I was trying to do this bass line earlier. Let's try something like that. Let's play a few notes, and then let's use the octaves. And here we can really feel the interest of the octaves, because you're going to get a few notes that are going to go up in the octaves. All right. All right. So yeah, this is art patterns and mutate. Now let's have a look at adding spice on top of this. No, first let's look. Let's try spice first. So we have this simple bass sequence. First, if I hold Shift and and use the bend, the bend slider, I can change the gate length of notes. All right. The second control, spice, is a feature that we created for MicroFreak and then provide in MiniFreak and Polybrute, and now available also in KeyStep Mark II. What it does, it's gonna add some variations to the length of the notes, the velocity. It can add some silences. It can sometimes add some ratchets. So let's leave it. You can hear already the sequence is getting more dynamic. I'm back to 0. Now we're starting to have some silences, some short notes, and you can hear the velocity also is more fluctuating. Back to 0. If I triple tap, I roll the dice, and now we have a different spice. Spice can also move some notes up 1 octave. So I still have my bass line that was generated by the mutate function, but I can also just have it evolve a bit. All right, I want to try something. I want to try something I hadn't planned to do, so we'll see. Maybe it fails. I like this, and I like this movement of spice. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to convert that. Is it going to work? Let's try. I'm going to convert that arpeggio to a sequence. And I'm going to use, if we look Shift plus this key here, it says double. So right now we have a 16-step sequence, and we're going to double it twice, so now it's 64 steps. So now it's quite static. What I'm going to do is I want to record a movement of spice over the evolution of the pattern. So like I told you, pitch bend and mod wheel can be recorded, but also the gate length and spice. Let's try. So you hear on these notes that disappear. So the pattern evolves at the end of the sequence because of that. Now I can roll a dice, and then let's listen to. And now we get a new variation of it. So anyway, like again, that's really something I want to insist on. These features, they all talk together. It's not really I'm using the sequencer, I'm doing sequencer stuff. It's more like I have a bunch of arpeggio, generative, sequencer features, and I can move, in a very fluid way between these functions to create new ideas. So anyway, we looked at this. I wanted to show the synergy between ARP patterns, mutate, and spice, and ultimately we went into bringing it back into the sequencer and doing recording of automations of the spice slider. Let's stay on the sequencer actually. Let's stay on the sequencer. We have something playing with this automation of spice. By the way, long press on sequencer. The second feature is clear automations. So if I'm not satisfied with that, I just get rid of it. You can overwrite on an automation, or you can clear it. Let's look at real-time recording. So let's look at real-time recording. So I'm gonna modify this sequence and do real-time recording on top of it. Is it polyphonic? All right, it's polyphonic. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna start by setting a count in time. So I'm gonna hold the sec button, and then actually, let's explore the features together. So the pattern initialize, I told you it just clears the notes and goes back to something empty. Clear automations, I can choose which automations I want to clear. Quantize, like I told you at the beginning, we can do unquantized recording, and then you can choose to quantize the sequence afterwards. Sequence length from 1 to 64 steps. Record count in, so that's what I wanted to change. I'm going to set it to on. So now before doing real-time recording, it's going to do 1 bar of count in. Record quantize. If you don't want to have unquantized recording, you can just set it to on, and then everything will be quantized at the recording. And record automation, you can choose to activate or deactivate the recording of these automations if you don't want to have, if you don't want to have any automations recorded. Use pattern tempo. It's more contextual. You can save the tempo in each of the 64 sequence memories. And the setting says, does it load that tempo? Is it every time you load the sequence, it loads the tempo of that sequence? Or does it just stay with the current tempo? Or the default mode is when paused, meaning if you're playing, it's going to continue with whatever tempo you have. But if you stop the transport before you load a sequence, then it also loads the tempo of your sequence. Wait to load. When you change sequences, is it going to do it immediately? Is it going to wait until the end of the pattern? And program changes. KeyStep can send program changes on each of the 64 sequence memories. You can assign a program change and have whatever you're controlling. I don't have it set up for now, but you can program, I don't know, with a mini freak, micro freak, whatever. And then your presets will change as you load a sequence. And all patterns init, which is the way to just clear the full sequence. So okay, so we just a brief overview of some of the more menu divey features of the sequencer. So now I have a count in. The count in, you can see it. You can see from the state of this record LED, there's 3 different colors. There's red, which means recording overwriting the sequence. So whatever I play overwrites the previous content. If I press play, it's orange during the count in. And finally, overdub. So if I do shift plus record, it says overdub. And now it's blue. And now the notes that I'm going to record are going to be played on top of the sequence rather than to replace the content. So let's start. Let's start with some non-overdub recording. And I'm just going to start with a long note at the beginning of my sequence. So count in. All right. So just just a simple example of overwrite recording. Now we can also overdub some notes on top of it. So if I do a shift record, same thing, count in. And now I still have my bass line playing, but I also have these notes playing on top of it. Let's see. Let's do a. I pressed stop on my TAW. Let's do another recording of automation, but this time of the mod wheel. So you can record up to 4 automations at the same time: pitch bend, mod wheel, gate length, and spice. Let's say that I don't like that last recording. I can do undo, and now it got rid of that last recording. So in this case, it was the automation. I can also navigate in the steps. So now we're in step recording mode. I can see the notes that are in my step and listen to them. For instance, if I want to get rid of that higher melody that I played, I can navigate the note, select that high note, long press, get rid of it. And now we're going to do that also on the other one. So this is, like when I was telling you, this is more fiddly. I would say it's good to have it. Like for instance, in this case, I just wanted to go back to this bass line, and I don't need to record it over again. I can just record this melody that I recorded on top of it is gone. All right. What else? So I talked about quantization. I talked about duplicating. We had just started from a 16-step sequence, and then we extended it. We showed step editing, automations, undo. Let's have a look over here. So these are functions they call sequence editing. The first one is nudge. So what it does is move the full sequence by increment of 1 step forward or backward. So let's say you recorded something that you really like, but you want to change where the riff starts. You can just nudge however many steps you want, and it will move your sequence around. Octave, obviously, you can double. We mentioned it. Quantize. We mentioned it. Reload. Let's save this. So shift plus the sequencer we enter saving mode. And I'm going to just click, and now I've saved this first sequence. And now let's mess with it just randomly for no reason. So counting again. All right, so I have this awful thing, and then if I go reload, it's gonna go back to the saved state. You can have up to 16, maybe 32 different edited sequences at any time, and you can choose which ones you want to save. One of the interests of that, having so many edited versions, is because people can chain sequences on KeyStep. So again, that's a cool feature to show. Let's do that. So we have this. I'm gonna show you a synergy between Mutate and the pattern chain. So we have this baseline. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna save that sequence on preset 2. So now we have 2 different sequences with the same sequence playing. And we're gonna mutate that sequence. So on the arpeggio, I showed you what mutate does. It uses a set of simple rules, like Euclidean rhythm to place the steps, long or short notes, polyphony or not. On the sequencer, it's a totally different approach. On the sequencer, it takes your sequence, the way you programmed it, and then does mutations to it. It's gonna take some sections of the steps and move them around, transpose them, do all kind of weird stuff to your sequence. So let's do that. Let's play it and do a mutation. All right. So now we have something nice. Actually, I really like what it did on the first half of the pattern, the first 32 steps. So what we're going to do is we're going to just keep these first 32 steps. To extend the length, I showed you with the sequencer menu. You can go through that, but there's also a shortcut. Holding this timing button and then using the keys 1 to 16. So if I just hold, press once, it's 16 steps, press twice, it's 32 steps. Now, let's get rid of it. Now we have just this sequence at the beginning that was mutated that I find super cool. So I'm gonna save it. I don't even need to save it. I'm gonna show you how to create a chain. So we have our 2 phrases. I'm gonna do a chain of the first sequence once and then the second one twice because it's only 32 steps long. So Shift plus the play button is chain. And I'm gonna do 1, 2, 2. And now I created a chain of pattern 1, pattern 2, and pattern 2 again. Go back. Let's see if it does that again. Oh, okay. All right. Well, I don't know. I don't know why it would play back some of the weird notes I played at some time. But anyway, now I have my first sequence playing and then the second one playing twice. Let me check actually. Why is it playing that? If I reload that. All right, so now it sounds good. Saving it, and now I'm gonna do that chain again. Pattern chain, edit, 1, 2, 2. It still kept it. So chain on. All right, and now it finally sounds like what I wanted. So now I have this first sequence playing, and then it moves to the next one that was creating created from the first one with some mutations. All right, and you can do that over and over again. You know, like if I move to the second sequence, I can do a mutation of it. Let's say that we like this. All right, let's save it to preset number 3. And now we can do a different chain. No, I can go and clear edit and do 3. All right, let's 3. Oh, I'm gonna get rid of them. Take. Hold on. Clear, and say pattern 3, 2, 1. All right. Now we have. And you know, without writing anything, I'm just getting new ideas that are created by the mutate function. And some of them are good, some of them are not going to be good. You know, it's also part of the, part of the process of working with generative functions. When you have something that you like, save it, and then create a chain between these patterns and kind of work with them all together. Let me think. No, that's a lot of features that we covered. Connectivity, I mentioned it at the beginning. CVN gate. If we just go, I don't know. The click on this encoder reveals the global settings. So you get settings for MIDI channels, synchronization, what kind of clock is going to be sent, if you are going to send or receive transport, the format of the analog clock at the back, what we send and what we receive, CV pitch with like hertz per volt or volt per octave, what pitch band the range in CV, in volts, that is going to be handled by the pitch band. Same thing for gate and CV mod. You know, we have, like I said, these 2 mod output at the back, and you can choose mod 1, the source, velocity, aftertouch, mod wheel, random, pulse. And same thing for the second one, and the max voltage that you're going to send with these outputs. So, you know, you could have a mod wheel on just 1 volt of output and maybe velocity with 10 volts. It's nerdy, you don't need that all the time. It's very convenient to just sometimes do a patch with aftertouch and mod wheel, and sometimes velocity and aftertouch, for instance. That's really convenient. Curves for velocity, for aftertouch, and the sensitivity of the aftertouch. Just a bunch of settings that you will be able to find. LED intensity, dim, normal, and night, which reveals everything, all the buttons that are off. So here it's not, I don't know how it shows on the camera, but in nighttime it's nice to have a backlit effect of all the buttons. That covers a lot of things. I hope it was not too much talking. Let me see what I wanted to do. Let me show you one last thing that I tried to do today, which was using it for drums. We didn't really design it for drums, I would say, but I found it super interesting to. So I had a bunch of like kick drums ish here, and just choosing one of these ARP patterns and pressing mutate until I have a pattern that I like. Let's say I like this, for instance. Turn into a sequencer. So let's say where it starts. I would like it to start here. So now I can use the nudge, move it 1 step. Wait, maybe 2 steps. And I have a rhythm that I like. You know, I can record it in my DAW. All right, and then we can move to another track. I did the same with some hi-hats. So for hi-hats, I found it nice to use to have more notes and play with play with the, hold on. Right, it was octaves, all right. So play with the more density, the short mode, and then play with spice to add like rhythmic variation, adding some silences, and do something like that. Same thing, I can record. All right, and then you know, maybe you do a snare drum. You do a snare drum without any generation. Just all right. Yeah, and as a just as a way to experiment with these functions, maybe not the way they were intended, but I don't know, for that kind of like glitchy experimental rhythms, it works really well. You know, when velocity has an effect, gate length have an effect on the sound. Same thing on this, on the, Anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself. It's already almost 6 p.m. here, so maybe let's move to questions. Let me check if we have some questions. I'm gonna look at my computer and let's see. All right, we have a few. Cool. So, awesome performance in the cave. Did you have fun? Yes. Yes. You know, this kind of sequence shots, it's a lot of repetitions until you get a nice shot, a nice take from the music. You know, I had to hear myself playing while I had a drummer a meter away from me on my right. All of that, but it's part of the challenge. It was overall really fun, yeah. And thank you. Is the product lighter than the previous one? Would be great for traveling on tour. It is. It is. Let me explain you why. KeyStep Mark I had a metal backplate, and this one uses plastic, so it's a lot lighter, and actually it's just as sturdy. We did that on a couple of products, for instance, Mila Mark III and Microlab, moving to plastic bottom plates because I don't know, portability is an essential part, and I don't know, it used to feel like a heavier product is more quality, but the reality is no. You can just get the same level of quality with a lighter product. The fourth question is it the same build quality as the Mark I and same keybed? I would say the build quality is better. I find the design to be a lot more elegant. In terms of sturdiness, we had some issues with the USB connector of KeyStep because there was no power switch, and so a lot of plugging, unplugging led to some issues on some of the units. Now USB-C is more reliable than micro USB, and a power switch means you don't need to unplug it every time. So there's already that. Keybed, it's almost the same. I would say it's the same mechanical design, but we improved over the years in our knowledge of how to design a keybed, so like how it's assembled, how to get the aftertouch, and overall the feel of the keybed is better on this one than it was before, yeah. Should I get this or the KeyStep 37 Mark I? For what typical purposes is each one better? It's a great question. I mean, the KeyStep 37, compared to the original KeyStep, provided LEDs above the keys, 4 knobs, and a new mode, that the 4 knobs that were used for MIDI CCs and for a chord mode, an advanced chord mode where you could generate some strum, had some velocity effect on the chord. These chord functions are available in KeyStep Mark II, and they're actually, it's less direct access because you don't have the knobs, but there's more functionalities to experiment with. This one gives you 2.5 octaves compared to 3 octaves for KeyStep 37 Mark 1. So there's comfort in that, and for using with the computer, you get more knobs. But honestly, I find the overall value of the Mark II a lot better than the original KeyStep Mark 1 and KeyStep 37 Mark 1. So I would recommend to use this one rather than the first one. There's a question about, are we able to record an arpeggio live into the sequencer? That's a good question. Currently, it's not possible, no. You can, like I showed you, transform the arpeggio into the sequencer with the arp2sec function, but it will not record an arpeggio performance, meaning it will take the last notes that I played and turn that into a sequence. If what you want to do is, like, for instance, jam with the keys in the Arpeggiator mode and expect that to be to be recorded in the sequencer, it's not possible as of today. Usually, how often does the mutate button generate something good? Is it really random? Is there a way to create a user template in the MIDI control center? So if that person is still here, while I answer the first part, when you meant user template, were you talking specifically about mutate, meaning like density of notes and length of notes, or about templates like a configuration of the unit? So I'm going to answer the first part. How often does mutate generate something good? My feeling is that it doesn't generate a million different things, but what it does it well. That's kind of what I feel about it, is that most of the time I can find a use for it. I find it extremely efficient for like repeating phrases with with a lot of notes, or like things that are quite fast-paced, arpeggios, phrases, bass lines. Like 303 types of bass lines are very, very well covered by the mutate function and the arpeggio pattern. On the sequencer, it really depends on what you fit it with. I find that it works very well on simple ideas. And when you move into more complex sequences, it's not as often good. For instance, like big chord progressions can get a bit messy with a lot of like overlapping notes. Most of the times, I find like on simpler phrases, the arpeggio mutate and sequencer mutate are give you I find definitely more than half of the generations I find useful. But judge for yourself. We pressed a few mutates today. What did you feel about it? Did you feel like it was mostly good or mostly average or bad? Is it really random? No, it's not. It's not random. It's not random on the arpeggio. The rules. There's a bit of emphasis of the lowest note that is played. The position where the notes are going to be is not purely random, because you don't want to have weird syncopated feels. If you just have, even if it repeats, but if you just have random distribution of notes, it feels robotic. So we used, like I said, Euclidean rhythms as a frame of reference. And let's say if one of the patterns says there's a density of like 60% of notes, we look at, okay, the sequence is 16 steps. What's 60% of that? And then do a Euclidean rhythm of 10 among 16, 11 among 16, 12 among 16. So like in that ballpark of like 60% of a 16-step sequence that would be filled. And then that gives you positions of steps, but we don't actually just stick to these positions. There is more likelihood that the notes are going to be there, and a bit of probability that they're going to be somewhere else. It's like juggling. It's not artificial intelligence. It's more like us fine-tuning some things that we find cool and musical through iterations. Any tips for me on how to use the added Mod2 CV on the modular setup? What did I do? I don't know, like a patch that has a dynamic effect, so pitch, gate, and velocity is super useful, especially with Spice that generates some movement of the velocity, especially with the arpeggio patterns where everything is a bit dynamic. I find that mod wheel as an extra control is very useful for things like opening effects. And I use aftertouch. I don't use it a lot, to be honest, but I find aftertouch to be nice to do like quick filter movements or like wobbles or things like that. That's how I would use it. And then random per note is like a module that gives you one random value per trig is just going to be maybe I don't know, 100 euros, something like that, maybe a bit less, but like it's already a cost. It's super convenient to just generate a random value every time. And pulse per note, it's more specific, but like if you want to play with some notes that overlap, but then you still want to have one hit every time you play a note to reset a LFO, trigger an envelope or whatever, then you get these pulse, like short pulse for each of the key that gets played. I wish there was a way to save and import sequences arpeggios via the Arturia Software Center as external files. I hear you. Right now, with the MIDI Control Center application, you can back up the sequences into the MIDI Control Center and then bring them back into a KeyStep. But it's a proprietary format, and you can't edit them, modify, or use them somewhere else. What I tend to do is synchronize a KeyStep to my DAW, so that when I press play on my DAW, it plays KeyStep, and then do real-time recording in Ableton of the sequences that I wrote. So it's one extra process for sure, but it still allows me to get the sequences into something outside. I'm a beginner and consider buying a Keylab Mark III. Would you say the KeyStep is for me? I would need to know more about how you work, the kind of gear that you use. If you are a player, if your main use case is sitting in front of a DAW and composing, I find that Keylab 3 gives you more, I don't know, more comfort, you know, with an actual real size keys and 49 keys or 61 keys, or even 88 actually. KeyStep it would be for you if you think you're going to use the extra generative features. You know, if you feel like there's going to be situations you don't want to use a computer and you kind of just want to jam with simple arpeggios, simple sequences, you know, get creative with melodic generation, then it might be a good fit for you. But I would need to know more about your setup. So the last question is, some people on socials are calling out the lack of probability, ratcheting, and reverse pendulum playback for the sequencer. Any comment on that? So lack of probability, I mean, there's plenty of ways to change the sequence with Mutate and with Spice, and Spice does remove some of the notes, so it's in some way a bit of probability. If by probability you mean just something that randomly turns off a note in the sequence, then no, it's not available on this KeyStep. Ratcheting, the same thing. The Spice can generate ratchets, but you don't have control on where it's going to do it. It's a generative function. It's possible. It happens, but it's not something that can be controlled. And reverse pendulum playback, to be honest, I don't know. I find that there's two paradigms in a sequencer, like notes and ties, like steps and tied steps, like we had on the original KeyStep, or like old school sequencers. and things that are more like a piano roll with a note start and a note length. To answer differently, if you write a sequence in your JW in the piano roll, and if you played it backwards, what would you expect? Would you expect like the end of the notes to be the beginning of the backwards playing, or would you expect the moment it reaches the beginning of the note to be where the note starts and then plays the full note length in reverse? There's something a bit, I don't know. It's two different approaches. And here we design a sequencer that is more, I don't know, more refined. The ability to have unquantized recording. It's less rigid than the original KeyStep. The original KeyStep was more like, here's some steps and they can be tied together. It was easier to have things like a pendulum back and forth. Can we add it some way? I guess we can find ways to have it, but I would say that's the reason why it was not, it was not something we explored in the first version. Yeah. And the last one is when is pleasant the KeyStep 37 Mark II. As always in these live streams, we don't comment on future products. The point is to talk about what's here. But you can judge from what we've done in the past. Someday, maybe. I won't comment on that. I don't see the live. I hope everyone's happy. I hope you enjoyed. I hope it was not too long. I'm on my side extremely happy to showcase this product. I hope that I'm doing justice to the KeyStep legacy with what we provide here. I find that it's an extremely creative device and very, very fun to play and easy to get into. And I hope you will share that feeling. So thank you, everyone, for staying up late. And until next time, bye-bye.